In a world where modelers are becoming way more prevalent, instead of using guitar amps, a lot of folks just like to run their guitar direct into some sort of digital modeler to sort of mimic that guitar amp thing, right? So we're all familiar with whether it's fractals or Kempers or neural DSP or all the different types of modelers there are on the market. I personally still like to use the good old tube amp. You can call me an old man, that's fine. That's just what I like. It's inspiring to me. I like the way it feels. And ultimately, will the audience care? Nope, but it's not for them, it's for me. So generally, whenever I do gigs, I'm using one of two different amps most often. I do switch things up quite a bit. But usually I'm either using my Bravado amp, which is sort of a Fender blackface-style thing, with a bigger boosted power stage, mind you, but still that sort of topology. So going into a regular cabinet and then a pedal board full of pedals, of course. I'm using tons of pedals, a lot of dirt pedals, of course. Delays, reverbs, modulation, all that sort of thing, into a Two Notes Captor X, which gives me my cabinet simulation. So rather than miking the guitar amp, I'm usually using impulse responses through the Two Notes to go direct to board. That's typically how I'll do things. Sometimes I'll switch it up and I'll use my Crab amp, which is a Mesa Boogie Mark II, I believe, sort of topology. So still pretty gainy. I'm using a lot of the gain from the amp in that situation. I might boost it with like a Tumnus or something like that, just to give it a little more gain if I need to. Still going through a lot of different pedals, still going through my Two Notes Captor, and it works. Both these situations work really great, but I found an amp from Engl. It's just coming out, actually, and I was talking to these guys about an iron ball, and they said, you know what, we got an amp coming out that I think is going to be a lot better for what you're wanting. So I begged and pleaded, and they did send me one to check out. So full disclosure here, they did send me this amp to check out, and I liked it so much, I asked to make a video for it. So here we go. This is a great new amp that I think I'm going to completely put it into my arsenal for the types of gigs that I do, because it does this sort of thing really well. Now, traditionally, I've always thought of Engl as like a super high gain type of amp. And while I do love that, it's just, that's not the style I play. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know I'm kind of more of a country-ish, maybe sort of bluesy, southern rock-ish, classic rock type of player. And so as such, I don't usually use a lot of really high gain things traditionally. Now there's always a situation where someone says, play Metallica or something, and we'll pull that out. But for the most part, like, it's just typical classic rock type of stuff. And so this particular amp does really good cleans, and it does a really good light gain as well. Now, it can get the higher gain stuff, but for what I use it for personally, it's been fantastic. And I wanted to show it to you today. And before I show you this amp, I know in the comments, I'm going to get a lot of comments where people say, the audience doesn't care, a modeler is just fine. And I'm not pooping on modelers in any way. I totally believe that they have a place. I think they're really handy for certain situations. But again, I'm not really looking at this from the perspective of does the audience care? I'm looking at it from the perspective of, whenever I plug into it, does it make me have fun? And does it make me want to play? Does it inspire me? When I plug in, am I playing things that maybe I wouldn't play ordinarily? Like, is it something that just breeds an inspiration that comes from the ether, and who knows where it comes from, and I plug into this amp or pedal or whatever, guitar or whatever, and it just does something for me that I can't quite put my finger on, but it's got an it factor. This amp has that. So let's check it out. All right, let's start with a good clean tone here. So let's add a little bit more gain to it. This is the clean channel still, but it does have a gain control, so we'll just kind of dial that up a little bit more. So looking at the amp here, what you have is a lot of different switches. And though it seems a little confusing at first, it's really not that much. So you have like a gain boost, sort of like a clean boost. So if you're on the clean channel, it's going to raise the volume. If you're on a dirtier channel, if you have some more gain, then this gain boost is actually going to give you more gain, obviously. We can change the channel here. We can add in the effects loop. We can turn it on or off here. We also have a built-in noise gate. We have a built-in delay, which also indicates the tempo. There's a built-in reverb. This MVB is actually pretty cool. It's just a boost on the final volume. So not really giving you a gain boost on either channel, but it's going to boost the volume like for solos or that sort of thing. And all this stuff is actually MIDI controllable. So you can connect a MIDI controller and control all these and even more parameters. Parameters of the delay, parameters of the reverb, the noise gate, etc. So let's play around a little bit with it. Turn this gain down a little bit. Let's turn on this boost here. This is, again, the gain boost. And with a little bit of gain, just like this, we're going to see it's going to kind of bump things up a bit. Now let's switch channels here. Now you can see I have a different volume for my lead channel, for my gainier channel, my higher gain channel. I don't use a ton of gain, so this amp does have quite a bit of gain to it. So here's what we have. Here's my independent volume for it, and I have this set so the lead channel gain is about even with my clean channel gain. Let's check out some of the other effects, starting with delay. So just kind of have sort of a little slap back thing. Back the gain down just a bit. So pretty cool for something like that. Now let's talk about the features. You can see the knobs here on the back. So we have a mix, we have a time, we have a feedback. And then we have a reverb control. So I would dial it just about right there. I just want generally just a little bit. And then we have a noise gate as well. This noise gate, though, only works on this lead channel. And really, you don't really need it on the cleaner channel. You do need it when you have a lot of gain. And this, like I said, has the ability to get quite a bit of gain. So you can hear some of that hiss, which is totally normal whenever you have this amount of gain. Again, tons and tons of gain. So we have a control back here that we can dial in how much of our noise gate, so when it kicks in, when it kicks out. As you can see, noise is gone. Now that's a pretty exaggerated setting. So that's way more gate than I would normally use. I'm going to generally start from nothing, and then when it just starts to kick off, that's where I want to stop it. So about right there. So other great features, you do have an attenuator, which works amazingly well. You have a headphone. So you can literally play this as, as a practice amp at night with no speaker attached to it. You do have to turn this to speaker off, but you could still just use it as a headphone amp. A really great headphone amp, though. You'll see the IR selector right here. So you can load your own IRs on it, and it does have some included IRs with it as well, straight from the factory. All right, let's try it with a little bit different guitar. This is a new one I just picked up, an Epiphone Explorer. Let's try a lower gain setting real quick with this. This type of amp, this amp specifically actually, is just one that whenever I play it, it makes me want to play more. And I tend to want to play a little bit heavier stuff than normal, which is cool. But I think ultimately this is the amp that's probably going to end up in my rig for whenever I'm still doing the classic rock stuff, because it still does great cleans. It's 20 watts EL84s, I believe. It's got an IR loader. It's got an attenuator. It basically has everything that I need without dragging a bunch of stuff with me. So especially for just grab and go stuff, this amp is fantastic and a great value as well. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.